Welcome to PhotoshopUser TV, brought to you by the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. And now, here are your hosts, the Photoshop guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to PhotoshopUser TV. We are fresh back from wardrobe for a great new episode. We are brought to you by the National Association of Photoshop Professionals, the fine folks who bring you Photoshop User.
Very nice, Jessica. You got the attitude.
We've got the dancing cover. Photoshop User, of course, is our official magazine for NAP members, and it is full of cool tutorials everywhere, all over the place. Everyone, I am Corey Barker. Welcome back. I am joined once again this week by the lovely Jessica Maldonado.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
Now, if you don't know who Jessica is, and I don't know why you wouldn't, if you've been watching, Jessica is actually one of our in-house designers. She is responsible for all the great books we do. All of Scott's books, pretty much all our books.
Your book?
My book, and perhaps one day Pete's book, if it's going to happen.
Come to a book, Pete.
But there pretty much isn't a book that hasn't left this company, that hasn't gone through her hands. She designs the covers. You do a lot of the page layout designs. You pretty much do every single page. So she is responsible for how great they look. So we just had to have her come on the show and share.
She's our Photoshop girl.
She's our Photoshop girl.
She's a Photoshop girl.
Had to come on and have her share what we are doing, or what she's doing with all that design stuff. So she's going to be here once again. Got something great later. And of course, over in the weather station, he's shackled to his desk, Pete Collins.
Yeah, you don't want to know where the shackle is, but hey, how's it going, everybody?
He is. We never let him leave, actually. He loves his, well, we like to make him convince him that he loves his job that much. Look, you can see him. No. All right.
Stick around, Pete.
So before we get started, I just want to talk about a couple of things. Now, we know we're a ways off, but we have to kind of get the buzz going now for Photoshop World. It's coming up in September.
Vegas,
yes,
baby.
I know summer has barely started.
Baby.
Vegas, September 4th through the 6th. Yes, am I looking at my site right? Yes, 4th through the 6th at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center. Let me get the right page since they're calling up my screen here. Homepage here.
Well, so but that's a good page to have up there because the early bird special. That's one reason why I went to plug it early.
One of the reasons, and you can see it right here. 65 days left to save $100 off the registration for Photoshop World, and that's a huge savings. So that's August 16th. You want to check that out. But in the meantime, be sure and go and check out the site. We're going to be having a new schedule of courses coming up, and there's new pre-cons. I know we've got some new pre-cons in the works that are going to be coming up soon, so you'll want to check that out. Hotel information's all there at photoshopworld.com, so be sure and check that out. I will be there. Pete will be there.
Yep.
Of course,
the extra events, like the party.
All the party, and we got Midnight Madness, and the keynote is always fun. And this year's theme is just...
You can't share it.
I can't share it.
Top secret.
But let's just say it's
You could ask a
top
couple thousand
secret.
people who went to the Orlando show.
Find somebody's YouTube video that might have, put that the keynote up on YouTube. Yay! It's a lot of fun for sure. But again, Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, September 4th through the 6th. Check it out at PhotoshopWorld.com. So, any other news in book world?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say. It's all.
You just finished a book recently,
secret.
I hear. Shh. Yes.
It's hidden. It's secret. It's precious.
Well, it's not that secret that Lightroom 5 has been released. So we're working on the Lightroom 5 book.
Yes, exactly.
So that'll be hitting the presses any day now.
Any day now. So that just went out?
No.
No. Oh, not yet. No. What are you kidding?
Are you crazy? What you talking about, Willis?
Scott's done his part.
Oh, okay.
Now the book team has to.
It has moved on. It is now in the next phase. So keep an eye out.
Put all the pieces together.
It will be along very soon.
Yep.
All right. So I think we're going to bore the hell out of these people. So we better get to some Photoshop stuff. So it looks like I'm first. Am I first again?
You took first last time, so you can't really complain. You stole the first.
What you got, Corey?
Hey, Corey, you got something for us?
I actually write the outline for the show, and I don't know why I put myself first. Well, and like you said, I just kind of jumped on it that last time. But anyway, actually, this week I have something. It was kind of reminded me of something I'd done a while back. And I was reminded because of something you did in the last show using some filters. And I discovered this really interesting way to create rain in a composite. You know, obviously you can take pictures of rain and like composite them. And there's a lot of different tutorials for creating rain, just like simple noise and blur and everything like that. But I discovered this method by accident. And this was actually a poster. It was from my last book. And I had got to this point where I had composited this image and everything. I was like, you know what? It needs that rain element to kind of finish it off. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a new layer and fill it with 50% gray. So I'll just do Shift-Delete. And 50% gray, normal, 100%. There we go. Now I'm going to set my default colors. So I'm going to press D on the keyboard. And let's go into filter and add noise. This is where it made me think of it.
There you go.
So you had to add the gray kind of as a layer for all the filter,
yeah, I need
to play on.
I need that to be the base layer because I'm going to blend it with the original image in a moment. So I need that element to be on its own layer. So, and yeah, and I typically, now you could fill it with white or black because the noise is, I've just gotten in the habit of using for a base 50% gray because it's what I use in 3D, not surprisingly.
Well, but you can also knock it out.
Yeah.
50% gray, you hit it with screen or multiply or whatever.
Sure.
It's that neutral color that can hide very easily.
So it actually works well with a lot of different effects. So where was I? I lost my noise. So add noise. I'm going to increase it all the way up to the maximum 100%, 400% rather. And Gaussian for distribution and monochromatic is checked on, so we'll click OK. Now I'm going to give us a very, very slight blur. I'm going to go into the filter menu and go to blur and choose Gaussian. And when I say slight, I'm talking like 1 pixel blur I think will do. Then we're going to go to filter again, and this time go to stylize and choose wind. Now,
I don't think I've ever used wind.
Well, you know, maybe. And before this I didn't either.
I'm not going to make any comments right now.
So you've got.
I'm trying to behave.
You've got these different methods for now. The wind filter is very limited, of course. It's got only a few features, and it only goes in one either direction, left to right or right to left. But you have these different methods. Wind, you have blast, stagger. You know, you have all these different ones for different types of effects. But I think I'm going to use wind, and from the right, it really doesn't matter. So click OK. Now, I'm going to do that a couple more times. So to apply the last filter, just press Command or Control F. And like you get 2 or 3 like that. So you almost get this, like, if you look sideways, you get this kind of cascading water effect. It kind of has that appearance. So if I go and do a levels adjustment, I'm just going to press Command L. And I'm going to grab the shadow eyedropper here and just find an area, kind of a light gray area in the image, and just click once. And then suddenly this isolates it down to fewer drops. Now these actually look like raindrops rather than just blurred noise.
Yeah.
These actually have weight at the bottom of them, and actually, but the problem is the rain's going sideways. So this is hurricane weather right
So
here.
Why did that work? Why did you use the shadow? It's saying make whatever I click on black.
It's whatever obviously the image is mostly black and gray, or white and gray right now. There's very little black in the image. So I'm just picking an area and I'm forcing everything where I click. So if I find this little light gray area right in here in the center, and I click once, I'm basically telling Photoshop, make everything that's that shade of gray or darker black, and which is most of the image. So it's leaving a lot of the lighter areas. Now I can go in here and adjust the sliders to determine how much of that I want. If I really want a lighter rain, or if I just want a very little bit more subtle, something like that.
A little more realistic.
A little more realistic. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now obviously the direction is a problem, so I actually want the rain coming, you know, maybe from the top right at an angle. So I'm going to press Command T, and then just go out here, move my cursor outside, and rotate it around. And then scale it up. It's an abstract element, so in actually scaling it like this tends to stretch the pixels, gives the rain a little bit more motion blur to it. Right. It gives it more of a sense of motion. So it fills the entire image, and then I'll just simply change the blend mode to screen. Now, rain looks pretty good. It's still all that white area. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just do a hue saturation adjustment and just colorize it, and then make it the same blue as the rest of the image.
Sneaky.
And then there you have it. Now obviously that rain is still a little bit more, so I'm just going to go and do a little bit more levels adjustment and reduce it down a little bit more. But now if I zoom in here, there I have a little bit more stylized rain rather than just the straight, streaky lines that you typically see in those rain effects. Great. But that's just using that filter in a rather interesting way there. So I just had to do that because if you've seen that before, I mean, I had a lot of people ask me about, you know, how do you do rain now? I said, well, I used to do it this way, but now I have a different method, and that's it. So, and of course, I have to show this.
Next year you might have a new method.
I might have a new method, but for now this works really well. But another thing you can do to it, because...
Just blame it.
Because the rain seems to have the right form and everything, it's still straight angles like that. So to give it a little variation, here's a little trick. Put it in free transform and then just go and choose warp and just kind of bend it slightly. Don't go crazy with it, but just kind of bend it in around just so that it's all not going in the same direction.
Right.
It's got that kind of subtle movement like it's moving through the atmosphere. And if you really wanted to get, creative with this, duplicate the layer and let's zoom out, enlarge the layer, and then you get rain more in the foreground. In fact, I could run a blur on this and tend to get a sort of depth of field.
Because you've got, build the depth.
You've got rain elements in the extreme foreground and you've got rain elements in the extreme background on those multiple layers there. So just playing around with some atmospheric effects right from scratch. Isn't that cool?
That's great.
Okay. I have to take a break because we have to all take a break. So let's take a quick break. We have a couple more things. Pete's got some cool stuff coming up, as well as Jessica. I don't see anything on her screen, but that means she's got something really cool. And she's hiding from all of us. Stay with us. We will be right back. Once again, I am confused.
It doesn't take much around here.
Welcome back. All right, so we'll just talk about MPix again. You saw the MPix ad. Did you? Did you see it? I'm waiting for everybody to tell me if they saw it.
Yes, Corey, we saw the ad.
Okay. Yes, of course, you saw MPix there. Premier print service. We talked about in the last show how quick their turnaround is, how great their quality is. Be sure and check them out at mpix.com. They're one of our sponsors. We use them all the time. I can't say enough. You've got some stuff in your office hanging there.
Oh, yeah. We all, I would say as a company, we probably use MPix more than anybody else, and that's just because of the service, the quality, everything that goes on. So if you haven't tried them out, people all the time are writing, hey, who do you print with? Check out MPix.
If you're a freelance designer, that can be your secret weapon. It's just like, your printing's amazing. Thank you. I won't tell you where it happened, though. All right, so let's get back to it. So I think Jessica's going to have a little something. Now she's got something on screen. What do you have for us today? I'm seeing cool textures.
I have a really quick way to make it look like you have stitching on something. Some simulated stitches.
Stitching.
Yep.
Cool.
Many ways to do it, but here's just one of them. We're going to define a brush, basically, which we've done before plenty of times. But I have a path here that I made with just a rounded rectangle tool, and that's what we're going to send our stitching along. But I could hide that for right now. I have a blank layer on my screen, and we are going to take a very small brush because this is a low-res document, and click for the first stitch about the size that we want it, shift and click to make a straight line, and we're going to just select that. Or we could click here and select just those pixels instead of the whole layer, and go Edit, Define Brush Preset, and we could call it Stitch. Click OK. Lilo. And go ahead and delete it.
You beat me to it.
I deleted my path. Hide the path.
Lilo and Stitch?
Delete the stitch. Lilo and Stitch.
I have a stitch in my
side. I do that all the time, too. If I have a path open, if you hit delete, you're accidentally deleting.
Yeah, I got rid of my path instead of the stitch. But let's see. Now what we're going to do is we're going to adjust that brush. And it helps if you have brush selected, B on your keyboard, to bring it up. And what we want to do is increase the spacing quite a bit until we get the stitches placed the distance away from each other that we want. Shape dynamics.
And this is another great thing I just want to point out about the brush options is that as you're editing your brush like this, you can see that preview in the bottom, it gives you a good idea of how that brush is going to behave. So it really helps you edit the brush along. Instead of having to go and brush it, it's like, no, that's not what I want, and you go and adjust it. So that preview is very, very helpful.
Oh, yeah. I love that. You get it right. You could change the angle and see it right there, how the stitches are going to line up together.
Exactly.
What I'm going to do also is go under shape dynamics and scattering and make sure this is pretty much turned off, because stitches will be, hopefully, if you've done them right.
Stitch job.
Yeah, they'll be pretty straight. We may want to have one or two in here for the scatter.
I don't know, you might be a seamstress.
We don't want them to scatter too much.
I can work that sewing machine. Let's just say that.
Okay. All right, now we have our path here. And what a lot of people don't realize, if you go down here, you can stroke your path. No jokes, Pete.
I was waiting, but nothing.
Everything always relates to a song to me, so I was already in a song.
Now, if I just click here, it'll do it, but we won't get any choices. But I'm going to show you is it option click? Yep, option click brings up the stroke path dialog box. And what people don't know, you could use pretty much all the tools almost here to do different effects on your path. Thank you. I was losing the word. Very simple word to lose, but I mean, you could even blur along a path.
That's a great hidden feature, and of course, can you show them real quick? Just obviously use the keyboard shortcut to access that, but that's it's also located right there in the path panel. If you go into the little pop-up menu, and there it is, stroke path right there. So.
Yep. So you could stroke path.
And look at that.
Pop. And of course, we're going to add layer styles because we love layer styles. We'll add some color overlay. Again, I'm going to click in the little swatch here and choose a color from my background because we get the eyedropper. And we'll just make it a lighter brown. And maybe a little drop shadow, very close to it. But if the stitches were really going through this layer, through this leather, they would have probably a little pucker underneath there. So what we could do is make another brush real quick with an even smaller brush, not our stitch brush though, a little hard brush, and just make a dot here and a dot here, and define that as a brush.
She's going all detail on
Edit.
this.
Define brush preset, and we'll call that pucker. And, and what we're going to do is stroke our path with the pucker brush. That's no good because we didn't go in and change those settings. Remember what we did before. We changed under brush tip shape. We pulled this out. It would have helped if I checked the number that we used on the last one, but...
This is why I love to watch how other people work, because it just gives me ideas. If you ever go into a class and you think, well, I know what they're going to teach you, whatever, you can oftentimes just come away with, I never would have done it that way, but that makes sense. I was thinking, how would you apply a bevel and emboss type of layer style to the stitching already? And it makes much more sense to create something underneath it that you can adjust.
Yeah.
Because I was going to have to. I was thinking, man, she's going to have to do some fancy maneuvering to get that bevel
rather than going
right.
in and, I mean, these are really too small to stick a bevel and emboss on. We're not going to really see the effect at this size.
Right.
So,
well, it's going to be behind the stitching anyway. So.
Oops. See, I should have taken note of what number I used before for the spacing and used the same number of spacing.
And that's a great
because now they're not
point.
lining up.
There you go.
Well, more or less. But if you slide that behind, if they lined up, you would see. You can see here they sort of line up. We would be getting that effect of the stitch going through the leather. We could pretend that
you could use the warp
tool. We could take the one out of the oven, so to speak.
Yes.
Here we go. Here they line up. Look how nicely they line up in my sample. So there you go, a quick way to simulate stitching.
Brushes and stitches.
But you'll do better than me, and you will remember how far away you placed your stitches.
Oh, no, it still works.
And then place the little dots the same amount away.
And it's, well, Jessica, couldn't you go back into your stitches and find the number? Or did you shrink it all down?
I didn't save the brush preset.
Okay.
If I had saved the brush preset, we could have clicked on that.
You could delete your stitches and then go and apply it based on it. But either way, make sure you remember those numbers to make sure that they line up. But I love brushes. Yes, it's a very good point. It's just when you combine the use of brushes and layer styles like that, you can achieve so many different realistic effects. And one person that's a true master of all that, we know who he is. Felix Nelson. I don't
That's
know
right.
if you follow Felix Nelson's work. He's our creative director over here at NAP, and man, is
Crazy talented.
Magician with layer styles. I, to this day, am still baffled at all the stuff he's able to pull off with just layer styles. I'm like, so it's got to the point this day is I'll go in his office and I'm like, dude, check this out. I'll look at it and I'm just like, okay, which layer styles did you use? Because I can expect that he's going to...
And quickly. In the blink of an eye.
It's amazing the realism and detail he can achieve so quickly with just layer styles. And it's in ways that seem so simple after you... And that's the thing about layer styles, is that they're, in and of themselves, they're not that complicated. You know, if you go in there, you move the sliders, there's certain, you know, behaviors they have, blend modes and size and things like that. At the end of the day, they're not that much... I'm getting... You threw me off. No. They're not that much, not that all that complicated. It's how you combine them and use them in various ways that really makes a big difference there. So, moving on, because I feel the producers are waving at us. Pete, on to you.
All right. Well, what I want to talk about today is I wanted to talk to you about dealing with wild hairs on subjects. Oftentimes, if you're doing a portrait or whatever, if it's windy or something like that, if you don't have a stylist, which most of us don't, you're going to get some shots that you may like, but then all of a sudden you've got some hairs that are kind of getting in the way and you wish you could fix them. I'm going to give you a couple basic ideas for what you can do to deal with these, to wrestle with them, to tangle with them, to be able to do something, and hopefully it'll give you an idea of how you can fix these up. So here we have a picture of my friend Kenna, and love the shot, but this clump of hair up here can be a bit of a distraction here. So what I'm going to do, first thing I always do is I create a new blank layer, and then I go up and I make sure with my spot healing brush, I go up and I make sure I click on sample all layers. The reason why I'm going to do that is now this brush will act like it's working on this base layer here, the background layer, but it's doing it on a completely different layer, so I can adjust the opacity or make any changes without actually affecting the background.
That's a spectacular, non-destructive way of working, Pete.
Thank you, Corey. I appreciate that. Okay, so one of the first things I would do is use this spot healing brush, and it is such a powerful tool to come in. First of all, to hit any spots, you know, maybe clean up some skin in areas. I would just go around and start just dabbing and dotting. Another little tip that most people don't realize is that oftentimes, if you get a weird result with a spot healing brush, either undo it or just try brushing a few more times with it. There's kind of a learning algorithm in your spot healing brush that it may not work the first time, it may not work the second time, but the fourth or fifth time, it may work out perfectly. So don't give up just by doing one stroke and saying, oh, that looks terrible. Come in and try it a couple times and it may go, oh, you want something like that.
It's kind of Photoshop's way of saying, how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
Really? Yes? Okay.
Well, and understanding that with the brush can sometimes save you, because if the spot healing brush doesn't work, in some places it's not going to. Let's say I'm going to come in here and try to do some big changes, see how it does. It does all right, but then we get these goobies over here. That's not going to work. I'm going to have to come back in with the next tool. And when you're retouching, there are basically three tools you're always going to use. You're going to be using your clone stamp tool, your healing brush, and your spot healing brush tool. Those are it, besides making selections and just filling those with content aware or whatever. Those are the three tools for retouching. There isn't anything beyond those. There's no great magic tool out there for retouching. You just need to know how to wield these tools to get the best result. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in and I'm going to try to hit it with the spot healing brush and get rid of as much of it as I can in a quick manner. Let's see how it does. And as always, when you're demonstrating it, it gives you the most goobies that you can actually want to have on the screen. Let's undo it, and we're going to take it in smaller sections, because a lot of times it'll actually do better if it just hits a little bit of sections there. And I'm purposely going to let it be a little bit rough. It's not going to be exact, because I want to show you the next step.
Well, that in and of itself is a good tip, because if you get in there and just like do a broad stroke and you get a complete mess like that, it's a lot of people think, oh, that's not working, I'm going to abandon that tool. It's just like rethink it a little bit.
Well, and the other side is I always try the big chunk first, because every now and again it'll work perfectly the first time. You're like, woo, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I try that first. If that doesn't work,
it's
the reason why I have undo on that button right there, as soon as it doesn't work, undo and I try again. But so I'm hitting some little sections in here, And you see it's doing a better job as I'm just hitting little pieces. Okay, I get to a certain point and the spot healing brush isn't going to be able to help me anymore. So I'm going to have to choose between clone stamp and healing brush. The clone stamp's going to give you the exact representation, which can be great because you'll know exactly what you're getting, but it doesn't blend like the healing brush does to give you kind of that smooth action that you want to blend it in and make it look better. So then what I would do is I would come in with my clone stamp tool, and it's all about making a good selection. I have some decent skin area in here, so I'm going to pick this area here and then bring it up and start painting in this area along here. Okay, I brought in a little eyebrow, and you know you've all done that as well. You've picked an area and you've gotten distracted and realized that you're painting too far over. Now she's got not only these eyebrows, but she's got this eyebrow coming in over here. You could either undo, or what I tend to do is just come back down here and hit it again. Because I like how this interacted up here. Now we've got a little dark area in here. I'm just going to grab another section. I'm using my Alt or Option button to decide where I'm sampling from. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to paint that section away. Over on this forehead here, I'm actually going to hit just this one little area to create a buffer up here. And that's where the clone stamp tool comes in handy to be able to create areas that your healing brush can then work with that won't smear as badly. Okay, I've now created a little color pocket up there of skin, so now I can switch over to the healing brush and grab the skin over here, and if I paint in this area, of course it goobers even better than if I hadn't done anything. So if we come in here, I'm going to take it in little sections, and I can eventually fight the power. Nope, we're going back over to the clone stamp tool. And hey, y'all laugh, but you've all had to deal with this. You have all had to fight the way these tools work.
Well, that's why you clone on a layer.
It's a peculiar thing about
it sometimes will work perfectly until you get up and on TV, and then it doesn't work. Okay.
No, so that's that little caveat when it comes to this content aware type stuff. Yes. Is that as magical as it seems, it really depends on the image, and this is something I've run into numerous times. Is when you're close to a dark edge on an image like that, you can either isolate it in a selection, which I know works oftentimes, but again, you just got to keep doing it. It's like you say, it's a learning tool. If you keep trying it over and over again, you're eventually going to get it. You know.
It's all still math at the core. It has,
well, what usually happens? Sorry, I just talked right over you. No. What usually happens is there's one or two freaky little pixels in there that it's reading off of. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you just need to go back in and go, okay, I need to reclone that area and make sure I hit an area that it's probably reading off of. So I do an even bigger chunk, then I go back to the healing brush, and now get ready for the magic or the disappointment. We don't really know which one. Yes, awesomeness. Okay, so what I would do at this point, and this is really where I wanted to go with this, the whole reason why you have it on a new layer is I'm going to come in and I'm going to do my clone stamp tool, but I'm going to work this area again. I want to find a darker area like over here. I'm grabbing a sample similar to where the lighting's going to be up here because you're really trying to match the tonality. And I'm going to get here and do that. But the great thing is because this is on its own layer, now I can do something like go into my images, adjustment, and I can do my levels. It's sad when you can't find the things you're supposed to be looking for. So I could darken this or bring this back and then hit OK so it'll blend a little bit better in that one little section. Now I could merge that with the one below, and hopefully now it will blend more smoothly with the healing brush. And so that's kind of where I wanted to go with this, is understanding that if you make sure you sample and put it on its own layer, even when it starts to goob up, if you then put it on a new layer by itself, you can then start to blend and work it. So many people try to work directly on the photo, and it goobs up, they mess up, and it gets all chunky and whatnot. Don't forget that you can change it on its own layer. Finally, one last thing, whenever you do that with the hair, you tend to get, like if I were to come in with the stamp tool and work this hair so I got a nice crisp hairline, got rid of some of these extra things, it really starts to stand out if that hairline is too sharp. Well, what I would do, besides making sure the tonality is the same, is I would come in, let's undo that, grab a new blank layer, and I'd even use the spot healing brush on this, come in and just trace along that hairline. And no telling what it's going to give me. It gives me a little bit of funkiness there, but now I just simply drop that opacity down to about 20% or so. And what it does is it kind of gives you that little bit of a shadow, a little bit of a hair. If you look right here, yes, that's a great look on the camera. But what it's going to do is give you just a little bit of texture and something going on the edge of the hair instead of it looking like it's been shaved right across there. And so that's where I started to play with, to be able to get that hair so that it looks decent, even though I've come in and I've basically shaved off all that extra wild hair that's floating around there. So don't forget that layers are your friends, especially in retouching, and being able to adjust the opacity and mess around with that is really going to save you when you're retouching. There's not a big difference between that and that, but when you start to look at it up close, it'll really make a difference. So that's the beginning, and that's real quick, sloppy on TV, but already it looks a lot better.
Can I add a little something to that? With regards to the spot healing brush?
Please do.
Because I use the spot healing brush quite a bit, and I just wanted to point out, when you have the tool selected, and I've got an image here, I'm trying to copy Pete, just getting a little hairline here. But when you have that spot healing brush selected right here, up here in the options bar, you notice you have a blend mode menu. You also have the different types of matching you can do. You can do a proximity match. You can even apply a texture. So if you've got a skin texture or something like that, you can certainly have that defined and then use that as well. It's got content aware here as well. Here's the point I wanted to point out. When you're using this tool, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on a new layer, is this blend mode menu over here. Now, if you've got an element, let's say you've got minor blemishes, maybe there's this little dark spot on our nose right here, but notice there's that little bit of texture. Now, if you want to maintain that, here's an interesting tip. Instead of using normal, go and change this to lighten. Now, what that's going to do is tell this tool, as you go over a feature, it's going to say whatever's dark, get rid of, maintain those lighter textured areas. So if I'm going in here and just going over the darker elements of this image, like some of those hairlines here, it's going to maintain that texture at a fair amount, at a fair level. And just the opposite, if I'm wanting to take out lighter elements, let's say I wanted to take out this little bit of glare here, change this to darken, and then paint over that area. And that's going to make that a little bit more subtle. And you'll notice the texture is being maintained a fair amount. So that's another thing to keep in mind, is not just those features, but also the blend modes and functionality of each of those tools as well. So that will certainly play a part depending on the type of image you're working on. So I just wanted to make sure that
Another quick thing you could try, if you have done a lot of cloning already on that forehead, and you have some skin texture already there that you love, and it's just the corners by the hair that's messing with you, you can change your line sample from all layers to current layer and just sample from the texture that you've already taken from the good spots.
That's true.
And that's what it's all about in Photoshop. There are 18 ways to do it, and there's a way to do it if you can figure it out.
Well, and everybody says, why is Photoshop so convoluted with so many different tools? And it's because every image is going to be different. Every scenario is going to be different, and you need a massive collection of selection tools. You need a massive collection of retouching tools to be able to edit those. And don't just master one. Some people say, well, I know the clone tool. It's like, well, that's great. But go and master the spot healing brush and those content aware features, because every situation is going to be different. If you've mastered one method and try it on a different image, it's probably not going to look right. So make sure you're aware of all those methods. So if you're just getting into retouching, as Pete said, clone stamp tool, spot healing brush, and I forgot the other one.
Healing brush.
Healing brush.
And be flexible.
And yes, of course, but try them, like he said. And you mentioned this either in the last show or this episode. It's like, don't.
The wisdom just flows out of me, so no telling.
Sometimes it comes out incoherent sometimes, but we still get the point. No, but you had mentioned don't do these when you're on your downtime, when you're playing around. Oftentimes people will come to me and they'll say, I'm trying this technique, and I'm just like, are you trying it in the middle of a project? Because you're only going to frustrate yourself if something is not working. So when you're learning these techniques, find images that have blemishes and just play with them. Don't do, I have to finish this for our client. I have to know how to take care of this. Don't do that. That's only going to frustrate yourself, and you're just going to make yourself a stress nightmare. Play around with it. Try different things.
Well, and also don't do it on something that somebody else, like your family, is going to be looking at. Like, don't practice your skin retouching on pictures of your wife. And then show them to her. Go to stock photography or whatever. Get some things that don't have some tension already built in. Because if you retouch your wife's face, that's not good.
You took away my birthmark. Do you not like my birthmark?
What are you saying? What, you use liquefy on me? What? Do I look fat? What's going on? Be smart about when you're practicing.
So you did thought I looked fat in that dress. Yeah, but I had the picture now. All right, we're just going to dig the hole ever so deeper. All right, let's take another quick break before we wrap things up. Stay right with us. We're going to have some giveaways and some other things to plug and more trouble to get into. So come right back here. And we're back. So we're going to have some stuff to give away in just a moment. But Pete just wanted to take a quick mention on something real quick here.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay. Now, one of our sponsors is Expo Imaging. And to be honest, I love one of their products that I have used for years, especially when I go to Photoshop weddings. Photograph weddings is use the Expo disc. And the reason why I use that, and it's very simple to use, is to get the right proper color rendition for especially like in the church or the cathedral or whatever, because you have so many mixed lighting sources. Our cameras do a great job for the most part of doing automatic white balancing. But what would happen is I'd go in and I'd be taking a picture and I wouldn't know quite what it looked like. I put on that disc,
so it basically calibrates your white point.
It calibrates your white balance, and then every picture after that has got dead-on white balance for it. Expo Imaging's got some great imaging tools in it. We love Expo Imaging. I'm a big user, so just wanted to plug them because they help pay the bills.
I would certainly use them if I had a camera. All right.
As soon as they start making stuff for the iPhone, you're good to go.
If they make a tablet or something like that, then yeah. No, I like Wacom. Books. All right. We have some books to give away before we wrap things up.
Prizes.
We got some new ones this week. Prizes. Yay. What do we have? First, we have How to Get People to Do Stuff. Wow. I think we're going to go ahead and hold on to this copy here. And we'll send you an extra copy whenever we give it away. But we're going to hold on to this one. This is by Susan Weincheck. I apologize if I butchered your name there. But How to Get People to Do Stuff. Wow. A bold title for sure.
It is.
This book is really cool. I
use that.
actually love this one. This is called The Last Layer. And look who's on the cover.
Hey, we know that guy.
It's Russell Brown of Adobe. And this is by Bonnie Pierce Latka. I believe that's how I say it. But this is really cool. It's actually an interesting approach because it does a lot of practical stuff in here. It shows you how to take like arts and crafts type stuff and then build like an artistic element and then photograph it and incorporate it into Photoshop. So it's really kind of taking a fine arts approach to working with graphics and Photoshop stuff. So be sure and check that out. It's The Last Layer. Very, very cool stuff. Now, how do you go and find out where to get these cool books? At a bookstore? No. For free, you can try by going to kelbytv.com/contest, going right here into the menu and choosing Photoshop User TV, enter your name, email, and enter a comment. Tell us what you'd like to see on the show. Tell us a joke. Tell us how much you don't like any of us. No, don't say that. Because everybody loves us, don't they?
I love you, Corey.
Yeah?
I love you.
I feel the love. So just go in there, enter that. The winner is picked at random, so it doesn't matter how clever you may be. It's like throwing your business card in the lunch bin, the fishbowl.
It is the digital version of the
It's a digital version of the fishbowl, the business card in the fishbowl.
People
pretty much it.
overseas
for me.
are going, what the heck?
Yeah. Some people. Yeah, there's people like business cards. What's that?
It's random.
You know the little paper card?
Right.
All right.
Paper?
Ask your parents.
Paper.
All right.
Yeah.
Before we go, I have to just throw one more plug out there, and that's for if you're a NET member, of course, you probably visit the NET member website. We hope you do. If you're not,
You should
be
be.
sure you go ahead and check it out. It's PhotoshopUser.com. And we've got, of course, this kind of blog scenario where we have updates every day regarding something in the industry. It's a new tutorial or something like that. As Pete mentioned, he's got his new Photoshop contest up there. And of course, we have the newest addition to the NET member site, and that is the online classes, full-length classes. And broken down, whether you're a photographer or a designer, you can go right down here, choose what kind of basics course you want, and then you have a full list of in-depth courses. These are all basically breaking down everything about Photoshop, when it's layers, text, channels, 3D even. I've got a full 3D course in there as well.
If you're afraid of the pen tool.
If you're afraid of the pen tool, if there's a specific feature in Photoshop you're just like not quite sure of, it's bound to be right in here, and you can get it and learn right away. And we're going to be continuing to add courses to this. In fact, I've got a type effects course. It's going to be a creativity course. It's going to be coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Pete, you got some classes coming up as well.
Curves class. We just had the pen tool class. There's
Yeah.
a whole. I've got 3 hours just on the toolbar.
So
if you
many
wanna know all
different
the tools.
things
Wow.
with workflow, with creativity, design, illustration. We're going to have all kinds of courses like that coming up. So be sure and check in on that periodically, because we're going to be adding something, at least one new course every month. So again, check that out, PhotoshopUser.com. So I believe that wraps it up for this week.
I think
Anything
we're
else?
done.
Pete, anything else to add?
Nope, just make sure if you are a NET member, come over and play in the Photoshop contest, Photoshop Fun contest, and learn more about, see how some great compositors come in there and play around. It's a great place to practice.
And of course, don't forget the social aspect of the NET member site. You can go in and actually find NET members and request, send a friend request to them. Even us, myself,
Yeah,
Pete.
you've got a few sitting on there you need to respond to.
Yeah, I got a few waiting in the queue here. I gotta go take care of. But me and Pete, our C, Matt, Scott's
there
even
too.
got a page in there, I believe. Yeah, he's got some good stuff in there. So make sure you go in there. Friend requests. You can actually send us direct messages. You can access portfolios and such like that. A lot of great stuff. Huge resource if you're a Photoshop. I know there's NET members out there that have never even gone on the site.
They
It's a shame.
should, because it's really a rich resource.
It really is, and it's been retooled, and we're constantly adding new material. And the best part is, the price has not changed.
That's right.
NET membership is still $99 a year, so you're getting more than enough value for the dollar. So be sure and check it out, and we'll hope to see you there. All right, we're going to wrap things up. On behalf of myself, Jessica, thank you.
Thank
Once
you.
again, Mr. Pete.
And Pete.
Loving it. Woohoo. He loves it every day. All right, thank you guys. We'll see you guys next time right here on Photoshop User TV. Bye-bye.